I'm pretty much ready to start inking this. Actually, the only other thing I wanted to add was a little Zohar, hints of Zohar here. The eagle just sort of flying around the gray skull, or the sorceress, or Zohar, depending on whether or not it's her or the eagle. One of the tricks that many artists use is to take their piece and hold it up to a light source. In this case, I've actually got a film light over here, and if you look through it backwards, or better yet, if you take a mirror, I think Frank Rosetta used to say he took a mirror. Let's see if I can do this without exploding my brain, and look at it backwards. And what that does is it gives you this kind of fresh perspective. Right now I'm examining, going, okay, are He-Man's proportions right? His one shoulder is maybe a little low. Maybe She-Ra's eyes are not exactly where I want them. I might fix some of the stuff in inking. But the idea is that you're kind of getting a fresh take on it, you know, especially if you can't walk away for a couple hours and then look at it again. I find that I'll sit there and look at something for hours and can't figure out what's wrong with it. You're like, oh, I think there's something wrong with it here, but I just can't see what it is. And then you walk away for a few minutes, and then you come back and you're like, oh my god. Or you show it to a fresh set of eyes, somebody, you know, who's willing to give you a pretty honest opinion on things. And then all of a sudden they go, well, yeah, totally, her hand's on backwards. And it's like, oh, okay, totally missed that somehow. But anyway, like I say, I think this is ready to start inking, and that's a good way. That's a good little trick to see if there's anything that really needs to stands out, that really needs to be fixed. So some of the challenges I'm going to try to overcome in this piece, or experiments, or whatever you want to call it. I'm going to try to kind of play with my shading style. For instance, one thing I'm trying to figure out is how to delineate between, so say where her skirt is here, her skirt is creating a shadow on her legs, and there's also the shadowed area of the actual fabric as it folds behind itself. So I'm going to try a few different techniques as I go, as to what gets filled in completely black, and what I'm going to actually just use lines, cross-hatched lines, to emulate the dark shadowed areas. So I guess all I can really do is start laying down lines and see how it comes out. So I've been experimenting also, speaking of experimenting, with different brands of ink that I've been just finding at stores. The Speedball isn't bad. I've got so many bottles of it though, because I just find that after like a little bit it seems to go kind of clumpier, and I know that you can water it down, and I tend to water my brush down as I go, so I'm kind of battling with that to figure out whether it's a new ink thing, or it's the ink is drying out, or I'm just crazy and I'm blaming my tools. Maybe that's part of it. Of course, I'm getting ink all over myself. I also tried this Higgins stuff, but Higgins is so watery that it wouldn't work very well with the brush. But I found that I couldn't get the Croquill pens to work with the Speedball, but it works really well with the Higgins. So there you go. Another fun little fact about these Winsor Newton Series 7 Sable brushes. I was talking to Bill Stout recently, and he said one way that he used to, if I'm understanding him correctly, is when you would go to the store, you'd want to make sure you were getting a good brush, and like before it was like 1 in 10 would be a bad brush, or maybe even more, but now it's, you know, not as good. So he says you would get them wet, and it'd come to a point, and you'd whack it on your hand or on the table, hopefully without breaking it, and you'd get, and if it split, you knew it was a bad one, and this one didn't, so I guess I lucked out. So I'm still using some water and the new ink, and really watering it down and getting my brush nice and saturated so I get a nice clean line. See, that's brand new ink to me. Seems to be so much nicer than ink that you've used even just a little bit. One of the things I've been trying to remind myself is every single line that I lay down needs to serve a purpose or mean something. And I know that sounds super heady and ridiculous, but every line conveys something. And so, you know, for instance, a line that's happening, say, underneath the bottom of the dress here might be thicker because it is in the shadow, or it's lower, and then trying to vary those line weights so that thick lines meet thin lines, and etc. like that. Like, so for instance here I might have a nice thin line that's down the top, but then I might marry it with a thicker line over here, and also that might actually get filled in with black later. I also tend to need to warm up a little bit. I know a lot of artists will ink or draw something else before they do the big piece. In this case, I don't have a ton of time, so what I try to do is I start somewhere where I know I have a little bit of leeway, like I can screw up a little bit, because I know that I'm going to go in later and fill in areas with black and stuff like this. So in this case, I'm starting in these pleats in her dress, or her skirt I should say, I guess it is kind of a dress, to kind of get my hand warmed up and the brush warmed up so that I don't screw up more important areas like her face. So again, for instance here, laying down thicker lines for the backs of her legs because they're in the shadow, where I might kind of feather out the upper lines a little bit. Now again, I probably shouldn't be starting so low in the picture, because you know I'm going to now have this area that is inked, and I'm going to rub over it, so I got to make sure that this is nice and dry before I go put my hands all over it. So I'm starting to feel a little bit better about my brush. I'm going to move over to this side of the page and start working my way down like I would traditionally. Now, one of the things that I am the least confident with right now, and I need to kind of work on, is hair. And a friend of mine once said something to the effect of, you know, an artist's style really comes out in how they do hair. I think he also said eyes and hair. I think something like that. And I tend to agree with him. Hair is a funny one, and I haven't. See, I'm already not happy with certain elements of how I'm doing this hair. I haven't really quite figured out my style yet. Other than I try to think of it logically in terms of wind direction, you know, try to give it some life. Hair is a great opportunity to give a drawing a lot of life and dynamics, especially in this case where these two characters are standing relatively still. It's kind of nice to give the sense that they're standing on this windy Eternian plain or whatever, and also considering that He-Man's hair is, well, both her hair is blonde. I'm not going to go crazy with filling in lots of blacks and stuff in his hair, or either of their hairs, because they're blonde, like I say. And trying to give the outside of the image as well a thicker line so it stands out nicely from the background. So reapplying some ink, making sure my end is okay. Coming in to start to fill in the sides of He-Man's face and his big manly cheekbones. nice thing again about jaw lines and stuff is you can get away with thickening the line because as you build it up, because of the fact that we have shadow under our chins, so it's a good opportunity again to work out some kinks without being too much at risk of wrecking your drawing. In this case, I'd really like to avoid using whiteout, so I'm putting myself under a lot of pressure to get this as tight and as good as I can on the first try. Reason is that I'm actually going to be bringing this specific master original page with me on the road, and that will be and because the blue line is going to be underneath that, I'd like to have a nice clean delineation between the line work and the blue line underneath without much for whiteout. So here again, I've made some smudges, but that's okay because I'm going to fill in a little bit of this area with some shadow and some black, because it's his neck, and the sun is kind of coming from here, I figure. Men's lips from the front are kind of simple, I find, or at least it's the style that I'm trying to get, because you have the line of the top lip and the shadow that creates, and then a little shadow under the chin. And then sometimes I'll do like a little notch at the bottom. It's going to give him a little bit more pronunciation in the cheekbone there, and hide a little bit more in his hair here. And now my phone rings, as it does.